Coming up on MacBreak Weekly, yes, Leo is on vacation, but don't worry, I am here with your regular panel of Renee Ritchie, Alex Lindsay, and Andy Anatko, and we've got a lot to talk about. First, we talk about Apple's Q1 earnings. They earned a lot of money. Then we get into the really interesting details of the next version of iOS 15. It's in beta right now, but there are a lot of fun features coming out, including new emoji. We talk about the potential future of authentication and unlock on our devices, and say goodbye to Harry Potter Wizards Unite. It's all that plus so much more coming up on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 803, recorded February 1st, 2022. MugBreak Weekly. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. According to research, 90% of employers plan to enhance their employee experience this year. And if you need to add more employees, there's ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for your job, and you can invite your top choices to apply. Try ZipRecruiter for free today at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. And by CashFly. CashFly is giving away a complimentary detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. See if you are overpaying 20% or more for CDN. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. Hello, it is time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we talk all things Apple, Macintosh computers, and, well, everything in between, and sometimes some nerdy stuff too. I, of course, am not Leo Laporte. If you are watching or listening, you can probably tell in both cases. I am Mikah Sargent, filling in for Leo, who is on vacation. But don't worry, because we've got the full panel here to get you started. Let's kick things off with youtube.com/Renee Ritchie's Renee Ritchie. Hello, Renee.
Hello, Micah. I made the mistake of trying to do an iMessage video, and it went like 30 minutes long, so I'm about halfway editing it, and I haven't stopped editing it yet, so I'm going to be a little bit loopy. Infinite loopy for the show.
Infinite loopy. Understood. The blue bubbles and the green bubbles. It's an ongoing conversation.
I want teal bubbles. Can't we all get together with teal bubbles? Just be friends.
I like that. Also joining us today, it's Alex Lindsay, head of officehours.global, 090.media. I don't know, do you consider yourself the head, at least the founder of Office Hours?
Chief Troublemaker. I like that. I like Chief Troublemaker. So,
I dig it.
Yeah.
How are you today?
So we're doing well. Yeah, we had we actually had someone on this morning you guys should check out. It's called Stream Voodoo. It does kind of what Zoom does, but it's built for production. So we've been, nice. But it seems that we've got having a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely go over to officehours.global. I think some of the most common questions Leo and I have gotten on the Tech Guy show during the weekends. It's like, well, officehours.global might be able to help you out with that streaming question. Joining us as well, the ever jolly, the always, what's the word I want to do? The always metaphorical WGBH's own Andy Anatko. Hello, Andy.
As long as you don't call me Buckethead, I'll take it. Thank you.
No buckets today. No, always metaphorical, I think. Although you yourself are not metaphorical. You have some very good conceits.
I've always thought of myself. Exactly. I was going to say exactly that. I've always that's been my aim in life. But I am but an imperfect vessel to hold the universe's perfection.
All right, folks, let's kick things off today with earnings. Earnings in and of themselves can be kind of a boring topic. Take it from someone who has spent time transcribing said earnings calls in the past.
Oh, sorry.
You get some tidbits in there that are interesting, but the overall is mostly just, hey, here's this ridiculous amount of money we made.
Would you call them
ridiculous amount of money we spent? There you go, Timbits. That's very good. Renee, can you tell us kind of the highlights of Apple's Q1 earnings, which ended December 25th of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, like, well, first when you said that, I was like, did we have earnings? Oh, that was last week, and it seems like an eternity ago. Like as much as 2020 took forever, it was a week. It was a year of Tuesdays in March. I keep saying like this year is going by like the whispering angel, actually the weeping angels in Doctor Who. Every time I blink, another week has gone by. So. But yeah, the interesting thing to me was twofold. One was that Apple made a phenomenal amount of money, as they always do, record-breaking quarters, like after another, but that they were still constrained. That they could have sold more. They could have given the people more. And that constraint is not on the leading edge node, not on like the A15 Bionic and on the M1, but that's on all these legacy nodes. And it just reminded me how dependent Apple still is on, because we always talk about how, Apple is so advanced, they have all this silicon and it's all custom, but they still have a bunch of dependencies on much older technologies. And they sometimes have to pick and choose. Like, is supply going to go to the iPhone? Yes. Is it going to go to the iPad mini? After the iPhone. So they had really robust sales of a lot of products, not as much as they wanted. And the iPad mini was sort of left behind because they just could not make enough to fulfill demand.
Do you think this is one of these opportunities? Well, if we can call it that, it's a learning opportunity. The idea that, when the pandemic was kind of kicking off at first, that became an object lesson of how our internet infrastructure needed work because more people needed to be able to work from home, learn from home, and everything in between. And now we're seeing the supply chain. Is this one of these situations that that financial analysts, investors, et cetera, are going to be asking more questions about going forward and making sure that a company has protections in place to make sure that they don't have to divert the chips that they have here or the displays that they have there? Or is this kind of one of those, we'll let it move on?
It's 2 years after introduction, and you still can't go to the store and get a PS2 or an NVIDIA or a real NVIDIA GPU. And there's very few fabs, and those fabs had to close down, and there were fires at some of them. And now Intel's going to build another huge fab, but they're going to license to TSMC in the meantime. And Alex is going to explain it to me because I don't know what's happening in the world anymore.
Well, I think that what it's really shown is how good Apple is at this and what you can do when you have a lot of money. So they bought a lot of this stuff ahead of time, and they are the number one client for most of their suppliers. And so when they say we want the first stuff off the rack, they're probably going to get it. And so the fact that Apple's been impacted has been interesting. The fact that they still pulled off a record profit shows you how much control they have over their whole system. And so I think it's a fascinating thing to look at. I mean, in my world, we have production that are shut down basically for a year. Like the wait on some of the mixers that we've been looking at is over a year, to buy any. And so this is so Apple being able to continue to operate, maybe a little bit sluggish, but this is like saying, well, the guy ran a 4.440 and not a 4.340. It's not when everyone else is running a 4.8 or 5. So it's so they're doing very, very well for what they have. Sure, they lost they lost it, but also that revenue is probably pent up. So it's not like they couldn't buy an Apple product, so then they're going to go buy another product. So most likely they'll recover most of that in the next quarter.
Yeah. Now, there's always the opportunity, again, Timbits, for some Timbits in this. And one of the things that was brought up was a conversation surrounding the metaverse, surrounding, augmented reality. I think Tim would rather not have had a question about the metaverse in particular, but certainly a response to that. I'm curious, in the past, Tim Cook, I can remember on several occasions talking about how AR was an important future for them. And did we get much color on AR, on the AR initiative or VR initiative this time around?
Can I just sneak in and say real quick that it was so nice how he dodged Katie's question. Like, she was all in on Metaverse, and he's like, I am never going to mention the name Metaverse. One, because Mark Zuckerberg wants to own it, and two, because it is so cringy, like cyberspace and information superhighway. It's what your parents use in the Wall Street Journal trying to think about what their kids are doing and not what the actual kids use. And then he just went right into Apple talk. I thought it was well done.
Yeah. Well, he also mentioned like, hey, we have 14,000 AR kit apps in the App Store, which was kind of hinting hinting at we can't talk about anything that we haven't announced or that we're not preparing to ship immediately. However, we are saying that when we're not starting out at zero here. We've been actually shipping these kind of apps and creating these kind of APIs for the hardware for years now. And so as soon as we get something stupid that people will willingly strap on their faces for $3,000, we're gonna clean up.
And I also think that the metaverse it may turn out to be something very big, but it's still an edge case. You still have to be a very vertical market of the kind of person. I think Apple is not. That's not the market Apple's looking at for AR. AR is something that everyone can use. When I'm looking at getting a new stand under my TV, and I went to Amazon, and it just said, "Would you like to see the stand that we have here in place?" And I just said, "Sure." I clicked on it. It popped in at scale, lit into over top of the one that already sitting there, and I go, "Well, I kind of like that." And that's the kind of thing that Apple's looking for: is how do you incorporate AR into everyday life, not how do you escape life to go into something else. And I think that's and I think that the metaverse is very much driven from Ready Player One, and I think that. I found Ready Player One to be a little bit dystopic, so I think that there's some folks. So I think that some folks are kind of like, well, maybe that's not what we want. And so, but again, I think that the metaverse I'm working on things that are related to that. I think that it potentially could be a huge market of how people interact, but it's still a long ways off before it becomes kind of common. The common ground where the average person is going to be using it. Apple's building something. I think that. Their target market is typically what will 90% of the people want to do 90% of the time, not what will 10% want to do 10% of the time. Well, and the metaverse is still in the 10-10, not the 90-90. Yeah.
Like their vision is so different too. Like Mark literally wants people to live in the metaverse because he's tired of people closing tabs on Facebook and shutting the WhatsApp app on their phone. He wants it on your head so that you're immersed in it for your entire life. And you look up at your kid's school and you see his toilet paper ad floating above it, where I think Tim just wants you to put it on, play a couple games, watch a movie, then take it off and do something else. For him, it's another endpoint, the way the Mac was, the MacBook was, the iPhone, the iPad were, the Apple Watch is now, like they'll be the VR and AR endpoints. He doesn't feel any need to sort of own your entire existence, where I think Facebook really wants us to be living, dreaming, eating, sleeping, buying, and doing everything else in VR all the time.
Do we think that this category or this product is going to be more of an earner like the iPhone, or is this product a way for Apple to make more money in the services category? Is this that's what we think, that this was all about, kind of ramping? Oh, okay.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure, because nothing earns like the iPhone. I mean, every time we get a quarterly result, especially the quarter that is right after a new product release, we see exactly how big that slice of the pie is. Apple has more than thoroughly dismissed the idea that without the iPhone they couldn't be a profitable company, because services is really the only pretty much straight uphill line that they've got in their quarterly results. It's the one that doesn't have peaks and valleys. It's not like how much money we're making off of China. Depends on the pH levels of our political relationship right now. Well, how much are we making on Macs? Well, we started to turn things around when we come out with a product that people like. They respond to it. Services is the one that's just quarter after quarter after quarter. However, I think I see it more like the cumulative role of the iPad or fitness, because there just isn't an emphatic reason yet for anybody to have one of these. And I suspect that it's going to be like the idea of an app like Instagram that made absolutely no sense until we have mobile devices that have really good cameras and have really good internet connections everywhere. And not all of those things were in the control of the person who is writing the Instagram app. And I think that VR, AR is going to be exactly the same thing. I think that it really is going to take, this is one part of a four-legged stool. We know for sure what one of the other legs is. We think we know what the third leg is. The fourth one is still a mystery, even to a $3 trillion company.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anything about the Apple one. I have had the opportunity to look at AR and VR at a pretty high resolution, not stuff that's publicly available, and it's pretty compelling. So if Apple actually follows through with what we're talking about, where we're talking about 8K per eye, 120 frames per second, or even 60 frames a second at that resolution, it will, number one, is that's why you would probably need two M1 chips to make that run. But also, it really, at 120 frames, if it actually does 120 frames per second at 8K as a VR goggles, because I think VR will be the first thing that they do, it really is compelling. Like that resolution and that frame rate becomes like a window into what you're looking at. And it's a much different experience than anything we've seen in VR so far. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to see where they take that. I also think that I still feel like what we've done is what Apple's done is they're slowly rolling out tools. And I think that those tools actually probably point towards, even though I want to see it this year, I think that we're probably looking at next year because some of those tools aren't completely done yet. But what they're doing is very carefully rolling those out. And so I think that this is going to be a very slow roll. I mean, I think that we see it maybe this year, probably next year, and then it'll be a hobby like everything else. It'll be a $3,000 unit that a handful of people buy. But at some point, I think AR, just based on the stuff that I've worked on in the last decade with AR and VR, that it'll be bigger than the phone, over time. It just won't, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a metaverse. To get back to what we were talking about before, it's something you throw on an experience and then take off and do something. I don't think you have to spend. I would not recommend medically anybody doing that for a long period of time, more than the length of a movie, because we don't know what's going to happen with people's eyes when they do that. And so I think that's one of the challenges there. As far as software goes, I mean, it'll definitely make money. I think the real question, and I think that a lot of the legal proceedings that Apple has right now may affect what that store looks like. Apple may decide, like for instance, if we get all this side loading and all the other stuff, Apple may decide, well, it's better for us just to do a closed system. Like we won't have any app developers. Like we'll just contract it. Much like we see with consoles. And because it's easier to do that at the beginning than to pull it back later. So they may, So I think that as we watch all these things roll in, it may just be a subscription service to have access to all this stuff, and it may not be something that is an open platform. And I think that a lot of the legal proceedings right now may affect that decision.
Renee, one of the things that you touched on, or you've touched on multiple times, is how some of the things that Apple does in public end up being part of the technology that's used in devices that come later, or used in implementations that come later. Is there stuff right now that Apple is doing in public, like, say, the accessibility features with the Apple Watch and grip movement, that you think could become part of its AR, VR hardware later on down the line? Have you been kind of paying closer attention to anything that Apple's working on right now that could be part of that experience?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think a lot of it is not always planned. Like sometimes people think that Apple has this grand plan and they're laying all these eggs that are going to hatch in 3 to 5 years. But a lot of times it's just opportunistic. Like iOS 8 introduced continuity and extensibility. And then a few years later, they're like, we need some way to transfer app logic and interface between the watch and the iPhone. Oh, hey, we have extensibility. Let's use that. And it seems like it was a genius move that they introduced it years ago and everyone adopted it. And sometimes they do lay groundwork, like with size classes, suddenly you can make resolution independent apps. I wonder why. Oh, because now every single iPad and iPhone have completely different screen sizes. But with this stuff, I think like the extensibility is still going to be important because the glasses are going to make the original Apple Watch look beefy in terms of compute power. And it's going to remain that way for a couple of years. So the ability to transfer app logic back and forth is going to be really important. Memoji and Animoji, I mean, those originally were like just for fun, but it's steeped people in the idea of having an avatar, like having an AR persona, and now Apple spread them to where we were talking about the other day or the other week, that they animate and get mad at you if you put your password in wrong. And that just lets people who aren't comfortable with the whole idea of having a virtual presence just like, oh, that's just my Animoji. It really just boils the water around people. And then you add in all the AR kit things that they've been developing for years, which required a lot of time, from LiDAR sensors to, occlusion to just like the way that they can do vertical and diagonal and all these different vertices right now. All that stuff is going to give them a huge advantage over a company that just tries to land a product and do it all out in public. So I think there's just a plethora of technologies that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And USDZ for Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget the USDZ. We are going to take a quick break before we come back with loads more news, including the latest betas, which are bringing a whole lot, potentially, of new features to iOS and macOS, including one I know Andy is excited about. But let's take a quick break so I can tell you about ZipRecruiter. So they've done some research. According to the latest research, 90% of employers plan to make enhancing the employee experience a top priority in 2022. After all, a happy workplace is key to attracting and keeping great talent. A few ways to make your employees happier could be by making your employees feel more valued, such as asking them questions, focusing on company culture, offering more learning opportunities, allowing for more flexibility in work schedules, or showing more empathy, like making time to connect. And if you need to add more employees to your team, there's ZipRecruiter. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter's technology finds the right candidates for your job and proactively presents them to you. You can easily review these candidates and invite your top choices to apply, which of course encourages them to apply faster. So it's no surprise that ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site in the US based on G2 ratings. In fact, I know several gigs here at Twit were found through ZipRecruiter. Find the right employees with ZipRecruiter. Try it for free, folks, at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. That's ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. And of course, thank you, ZipRecruiter, for sponsoring this week's episode of MacBreak Weekly. All right. So I mentioned this on iOS Today this morning. In fact, Rosemary Orchard and I went into absolute depth and detail about the new features for iOS 15.4, iPadOS 15.4 betas. And so you can check that out if you want, super in depth. But a quick thing is that iOS 15.3 came out not too long ago, and that was all about fixing things. It was kind of setting things up for what was to come next. iOS 15.3 fixed a vulnerability in Safari and basically a bunch of kind of security improvements and other fixes there. But that update, I think people probably just let that roll in the background with that automatic update setting turned on, let's hope. iOS 15.4 is the real fun one. It is currently in beta, and so they, of course, have talked about some of the new features that folks can expect, including one that I think a lot of people are going to celebrate, given the conversation that always happens whenever we talk about Face ID with a mask unlock. Right now, if you have an Apple Watch and you put on the Apple Watch and you type your little code in on the Apple Watch and the Apple Watch stays on your wrist, then the Apple Watch can pretty much assume that you are you. Then it can converse, so to speak. It can communicate with the phone and say, hey, as long as this Apple Watch stays on this person's wrist, I can authenticate it. It's this person. And if you are wearing a mask, then looking at your phone, it will communicate with the Apple Watch and say, yeah, definitely still this person. They're still wearing the watch. They haven't taken it off. It's them. Can unlock the phone and let you into it. You get a little buzz on your wrist and it says, hey, I've unlocked your phone. You can tap on that button to say, no, that wasn't me. Lock my phone, at which point the passcode will have to be typed in. Folks complained that that's a great feature, super cool, but that means that you got to have an Apple Watch if you want to use this feature. What if I don't have an Apple Watch and I'm wearing a mask, as is my duty? So Apple has introduced a new version of Face ID that lets you unlock your phone while you are wearing a mask. I think, Renee, one of the things that people have to be aware of is that Apple kind of notes that it is using less information. So in that way, it's less secure because it's not using all of the details. But on the whole, it is still a very secure thing. It'd be like maybe my brother and I both wearing a mask and looking into it. There's a very small chance that his eyes and upper bone structure would be able to unlock it. But for the most part, folks can do this. And then there's also the option for glasses. Are you pumped about being able to wear your glasses and your mask and still unlock your phone up there in the wilds of Canada?
It's interesting because like security, it's like we think of it as an absolute, as a binary state, but it's really like a threshold. And this is sort of like, let's say something happened in the world and everybody had to start wearing a bandage on the bottom of their index finger. And so all of a sudden Touch ID couldn't get a full fingerprint anymore. And that's what we're dealing with here, is that Face ID traditionally needed enough facial geometry data, enough points of facial geometry data to confirm a match. And that was everything from your eyes in a triangle down to your mouth. And now we started covering that whole bottom of our face. So it could not get enough data. And what Apple's doing now is biasing towards the eyes. It's trying to collect more data from around your eyes, so it doesn't have to rely as heavily on the data from the bottom of your face, which is not getting at all anymore. It was joking previously. They said, like, if you're an identical twin, they couldn't stop you getting in with Face ID. And now it's like, well, if you're a non-identical twin, you'll probably get in too. So it's like, it's just sliding that threshold a little bit. And that's one of the reasons for the glasses, because if your glasses are foggy, then it starts to not be able to get the eye detail that it needs to compensate for the mask detail. And the likelihood of your eyeglasses being foggy goes up when it's cold and you're wearing a mask. So like all these things they have to juggle. And the point is, and Steve Gibson says this way better than I ever could, you have security and you have convenience. They are perpetually at war. And what every company's job is to give you the greatest security they can with the greatest convenience. Because if it's too secure, you yourself will get locked out. And if it's too convenient, everybody else will get in. So it's just finding that sweet spot. Will this be as secure as like full face ID? No, but it will be good enough for most people most of the time. And it'll be way more convenient. So I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Apple was already claiming that Face ID was a multiple times more secure than fingerprint Touch ID. You can't fault them. However, they got themselves into a problem that they didn't anticipate. Which is, again, the pandemic. But the idea of, well, how do you unlock your phone when your face is partially obscured? That was going to be a problem, but that was going to be an edge problem. And now they're stuck with phones that don't have any kind of fingerprint ID whatsoever. So you have to make face unlock adapt to whatever the current situations of society are. It's also a little bit beguiling that this is a problem that everybody's trying to solve, not just Apple altruistically trying to make sure that people can still use this very, very a biometric unlock feature that's going to be way, way more secure than forcing you to remember a passcode that's going to be probably easy to copy. But also all the people who are in like invasive security, they're also working to solve this problem as well. People who are basically selling all those $20,000 cameras mounted on poles that are pointed towards activist aggregations. They want to make sure that they can do Face ID based on just the top half of the face as well. So this is going to be a problem that's going to be solved much better as time goes by. And oddly enough, I think that it's going to yield a much better Face ID. The winter is the one time that I really wish that I had Face Unlock on my phone. Yeah. All the other time, because again, it's like I don't want to have to pull off a glove during my walk in order to do something. But all the other times of the year, it just feels more natural to just whatever the angle of my phone is, as long as I can find the scan pad, the touch pad for my thumb or my finger, it just simply unlocks. I think that we're going to start to see a better balance between where is this a better solution because it requires less interactivity, and where does it make less sense because you're forcing people to basically basically say mirror iPad on the wall, please let me in right now please. Which is what I go through with my iPad Pro all the time.
Well, and a lot of it has to do also with the cameras. What those cameras are seeing and what they're using them for. For instance, almost all of us, while a lot of us have geometric features, almost all of us have a heat map that is unique to us. And I don't think that Apple's cameras right now would see that. But it's been used for a long time. so that heat map is pretty accurate at distance. And so it is. So I think that's also whether they add more to those cameras as we move forward to, because you could theoretically those heat recognition systems can see through cloth. So it wouldn't need, so that might be something they update down the road.
Speaking of this sort of idea of multiple means of authentication and being able to just tap the phone in some cases, using your walking gait, there's a patent that Apple has applied for over on Patently Apple for its AirPods. And the idea is that due to the microphones and the acoustic computation that happens with those AirPods, it would be able to determine the unique structure of someone's ear canal and use that as a means of helping to authenticate that device. So now suddenly I can use my Apple Watch to unlock my phone while I'm wearing a face mask, or use Face ID with the new way of doing things, or maybe even my AirPods are also being used to authenticate. And Renee, you talk a lot about that ambient authentication future.
Ambient passive authentication.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like with your Apple Watch, you don't have to do anything. Like once you've unlocked it, as long as it's on your wrist, it is just unlocked. It has a trust state. That trust state is like it's on the wrist, it's open. With these other devices, like I have Pixels with thumbprints and with Face IDs. I have iPhones with thumbprints, Face IDs. Samsung used to have iris scanners. Sneakers, my voice is my passport. Authorize me. Like they have so many ways of collecting data. Like they're already doing the acoustic modeling, like you said. They're already doing gait analysis. Just establish a threshold, and if you're fairly certain it's me, don't prompt me. If it ever goes below that threshold, then force me to do an active authentication. But otherwise, like it's their job to do the heavy lifting, not mine.
Well, and over time, when you have a lot of these devices that you're interacting with, it can make it can error correct based on all of them. Going, yeah, that one doesn't look as good as we thought it was, but we've got all these other things that would reduce the variables to almost zero, because it's your heartbeat, your heart rate,
your behavior.
Is oftentimes your behavior, what you're doing, your all of those things are things that are within a range at any given time. And the advantage that Apple has is you're wearing them and using them all the time. So its sample rate is very high, so it can see the trends. So you may not be the same that you were 6 months ago, but you're the same as you were yesterday, or similar. And so that's but this is also why Apple's so intense about privacy, is because they're pulling up stuff that would be a gold mine to a lot of the companies that are trying to pull data, and that's why their business probably will never be around data, because they're gathering all this biometric data. But it also means that your phone will be the most secure thing you own.
Yeah.
You ask them, Alex, and you ask them again, and then you ask them again until they tell you to stop asking them. That's what Steve did.
Oh my. I did want to mention something for folks who are considering upgrading or updating to the beta. If you use Dropbox or Microsoft OneDrive or other applications, those are kind of the most popular that make use of a kernel extension that will be deprecated in the next version of macOS, then you will not want to get on this beta, because you will not be able to use these. Apple says
Maestro
that...
okay, Micah?
Keyboard Maestro?
Is Maestro still okay? No, Maestro for Dropbox.
Maestro.
I didn't even think about that.
So my understanding is that Dropbox and Microsoft OneDrive aren't all together, but the beta version of Dropbox and the beta version of Microsoft OneDrive will work. Dropbox lets you get in on the beta, but Microsoft OneDrive does not have that beta. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, Scooter X in the chat is saying that Dropbox is working fine for them in 12.3 beta 1. So I guess take that as you will. But Apple did confirm to iMore that it breaks the kernel extension. So just be aware of that you may have trouble. It says in the case of Dropbox, third-party apps can no longer open online-only files. So if you're using that Dropbox sync method where you have files that just exist online, then you need to be aware that will not let you then open those files. So you'd have to download them first and then be able to use them, which that's just something that I do anyway. I typically just...
I was going to say, I was like that. That would have affected me a lot 10 years ago, but I haven't let Dropbox do that automatic thing for a decade. It's made me crazy because it just, suddenly my drive's full, and I know that this is leaving them online, but I just stopped it altogether. I was like, I just use it in the web. Yeah.
Yep. And if you have the advanced plan, you can put like literally unlimited stuff on Dropbox. I was talking to a photographer who has like 70 terabytes of his archive on Dropbox.
Getting it up is easy. Getting it down is not. Like it's really like I don't put anything else on Dropbox, anything new, because I'm still trying to get all the stuff that I have in Dropbox down. They're making a lot of money on me just because I can't get all of it off at one time. And it's such a disaster. Like, and I would never use them again, except for the fact that
but you can't get out.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, so just know that when you start putting stuff up on the web, it's not trivial to get it off.
Micah?
What?
Oh, yes, Renee.
No, I don't want to talk to Andy.
I just before we get back to the beta, one thing that was kind of interesting about the new editions of OneDrive, they announced support for packages for file bundles. So, for instance, famously, Scrivener saves its project files as packages. So because there's so much data in there, it is one file, but technically it's a folder that contains lots and lots and lots of individual files, and that's why there isn't a really easy way to sync files through the cloud. However, if the fact that OneDrive is about to support this unusual, here's a file that's actually a folder, but we're going to be sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge about it. Hopefully that means that a lot of Mac apps like Scrivener will be able to sync a lot more reliably and a lot more easily through OneDrive than it might through any other cloud service.
Final Cut Pro does bundles too.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry, Renee. You were about to bring up something.
I was just gonna make a melty face emoji joke because that was just so on point.
Oh yeah, that's next. That's next. But before we get there, though,
that was a perfect time to introduce that because this is how I feel now after hearing about Dropbox.
I do want to. There's a really interesting conversation in the chat that I am curious to hear folks' take on. So. The conversation surrounds biometric authentication. We were just talking about these sort of ambient means of biometric authentication. And you will hear security folks who choose not to use any of this kind of thing, Face ID, Touch ID, all sorts of methods of biometric authentication. What is the reason why you feel comfortable sort of using these methods of getting into your phone versus someone who is a, quote, security expert, unquote, not wanting to use
alphabet
these
agencies like Alex Lindsay does? That's basically
right.
the reason.
That's what I figured. I just wanted to sort of have that conversation out loud because, for me, I think it's also important to talk about where that data is stored because, to this day, I still have to occasionally educate on the secure enclave on the iPhone and in some of these different devices where your facial recognition data is stored versus where it's not, and your fingerprint data, all of that kind of thing.
Oh, can I just point out real quick? I don't want to get renditioned. I was just making an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. joke about Alex. Please do not rendition me.
I don't think that. I think this is why Apple is so like they'll let you do what you want to do. And if a government asks for something in the cloud, they give them something in the cloud. But one of the reasons Apple is so careful about the phone is because they're keeping this. I mean, many reasons, but one of the big reasons is because they're keeping all this biometric data on the phone. They're not putting it anywhere other than the phone. The phone has it sitting there, and so, like for instance, I'm no longer a target of state actors. So so as a result, I'm a little less worried about it. When I was, I definitely didn't let it do anything. But the main thing is that that you do want to be careful with the phone. It's one of those things that it carries a lot. It's a really powerful tool, but like for instance, mine turns off. I've got a very long code, long login, and mine turns off immediately, like 30 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever. And I by habit when I set it down, I just turn it off. And so I think that you get used to the fact that you're going to stay secure. That someone could probably do something with that, but it would be very difficult. But it is the one place that I'm probably the most careful about what I do with it. So I do think people have to be conscious of it. I do think that if you're boring, you probably have to worry about it less. I'm at this point pretty boring, and so I don't work on anything that would put me in that position anymore. And so I think that it's one of those things that if you're an exciting, if you have an exciting life, then you have to pay attention to all of those things. Like all of those things become important. I think if you're boring, probably a little less.
Yeah,
and of course, like Apple doesn't store the actual images that they take. They don't store the biometric data. There was this problem for a while where like Samsung and HTC were storing the actual photos in world readable directories, which was bad. But Apple converts them into math and then only stores the math and then only stores the Delta files for Face ID changes. And it is non-trivial. My understanding is it's non-trivial up to like heat death of the universe to reverse engineer that mathematical transformation.
Yeah, because the thing is, the biometrics are great because you carry them with you all the time. They're terrible because you can't really change them. So that if my bank said, "Hey, we've got this great new, now you no longer even need to carry your card around. You don't even carry a phone. Just let us take a 3D scan of your face, and just as soon as you're standing there, it'll make sure it's you who's using your account." But that's the point where I get paranoid, saying, "Okay, but who's having control of that scan? Are you storing just a checksum, or are you storing the actual data?" Because honestly, the things that drive me out of my mind are when there's the old joke at NASA about the astronauts at the top of a Saturn rocket, saying it's you try not to think about the fact that every part in this rocket was built by the lowest bidder. And the same thing is true of security, where a bank is not going to say, well, what are we going to go for the best, tightest, most? No, here's someone who just said whatever the lowest bidder does, we'll underbid them by 10%. Yeah, they're the people who are going to be basically storing a JSON file on Dropbox or on an unprotected container on Amazon Web Services. So with all of my biometric information, so that barring getting into a car accident and disabling the airbags, I am not going to be able to protect that account
really
anymore.
Quick story. It's like I was going through customs, and I have a Nexus card, and I went up, and in order to get into the US, it's like fingerprint or retina scan, and it just did the retina scan, and I walked up, and the customs guy, who was like, very like, "Rrr," it was like, "Why are you going to the US?" And I said, "I'm going for a meeting with Apple." He's like, "I hate Apple. They stealing all our face data." Like, you just saw me scan to get like, and I'm sure that's going to like the company who just announced a hack 3 days ago. It's like, that database is not secure. And then when I came back, I had to go through I had to do a very brief trip recently during like the lulls, and I went up, and it didn't even ask for it. Like, it used to make you scan your passport, scan your fingerprints, do the retina ID. It just looked at my face and said Rene Ritchie, and it had all the information about everything. Like, I never gave them a face scan. Like, where did this come from? It was so fast that I almost didn't care.
Well, and the thing is that once you know how deep the rabbit hole is, you stop worrying about it to some degree, because like when you stand in front of an ATM machine, you are identifying yourself in front of a camera. And they don't tell you what kind of camera or what that does, but it could potentially identify you by your iris, by your heat map, by your geometry, all of those things while you're pulling $20 out. So the thing is those kinds of things that's probably the ATM machine is probably the most dangerous, because it has a surefire. You're saying, I am me. I'm going to type a code that proves that I'm me, and I'm standing right in front of a camera where I get a clear shot of the face. And so the thing is that those are the kind of things that but we don't think about those. Like we just kind of like go get our money, And so those are the things that I think a lot of people are kind of unconscious to, that are around them all the time. And so you can worry about these things, but they can take you down a path of paranoia that is probably not applicable to most of us. If you are a reporter that is reporting on the Saudis and are negative, you need to pay attention to absolutely every possible thing that is there. I mean, like, I just want to make sure that there are people that need to be, they need proper tradecraft and to manage what they're doing. But if you're an average person, most of us aren't getting hacked because we're just not interesting.
Right. We should talk about a few other features. The one I mentioned earlier that I think Andy would be excited about is one that you talked about before. After all this time of being promised that at some point we would see universal control, we didn't even get it in the betas of testing it over the summer, anything like that. But it has finally hit the betas. Universal control is in existence. Andy, tell us what universal control is if somebody listening doesn't know.
It's one of those brilliant features that's just so very simple. If you have Macs and iPads and they're within proximity of each other, and you've turned on these features, basically the keyboard and mouse in front of you, it leaves the screen of your Mac and simply enters the screen of your iPad. And if you have text that you've selected on your iPad and you drag it off the screen of the iPad, you can drag it into the screen of your Mac. And it's not like you're just using it as an external display. It's still an iPad, and you're still interacting with all the apps of that iPad as iPad apps. But now they're just simply working together as one harmonious whole. And now suddenly it makes a lot more sense that all the stuff that I certainly was complaining about, skeptical about 5 years ago about, oh God, but they're making them. I don't know if it's a really great bargain to be making the Mac interface look so much like the iPad interface, but they're creating a single seamless thing. And the great thing about this feature is that it's not, if you have this one, if you have the Intel Mac and the Intel based, I'm saying Intel Mac, God. If you have the Apple Silicon Macs and if you have the Apple Silicon M1 based iPad, it works together. No, it works with a whole bunch of Intel and Apple Silicon Macs. It works with a fairly recent vintage. And the best thing of all, the reason why I wasn't, although this is a feature that I've been looking forward to since it was first announced last year, I wasn't terribly disappointed when it was delayed. It didn't show up in betas because it has to work. It can't be like the Bluetooth speaker that sometimes connects, sometimes doesn't. It can't be like the TV tuner that I've got on my network that sometimes my DVR can find it, sometimes it can't. It has to be something that when I get home, I take my iPad out of my bag, I put it on the stand next to my Mac, and without doing anything else, simply it's part of my workflow for the Mac. And I unfortunately I don't have enough copies. I only have one Mac that it will work with, and so I can't sacrifice that one on the beta. On a beta yet, but I've been voraciously devouring every single video of people using it, and it does look like it works as advertised, which I'm hoping is going to be the fact. I'm sure Renee and Alex might have tried it.
I did, but I think you need a T2 Mac if it's Intel, because I think I don't know if you need it, but if you have it, it does all the acceleration that you would get off Apple Silicon, because T2 is essentially an A8 chip from an iPhone anyway.
So you have tried
it?
I
haven't.
Just quickly, I have it in front of me. MacBook Pro 2016 and later, MacBook 2016 and later, MacBook Air 2018 and later, iMac 2017 and later, iMac late 2015, iMac Macs. Pro, iMac Mini, right, exactly. iPad compatibility, any iPad Pro, iPad Air 3rd generation later, iPad 6th generation later. I feel like I'm announcing school closures. Blue Hill, Brutal, vocational.
We're closed.
All public and parochial schools, and the iMac and the iPad Mini 5th generation later. So a wide swath of hardware.
And the Apple TV. Like I was like, it just shows up at display at Alex's office. I was just like, okay. So
wait, really?
Yeah, the ecosystem's good.
Yeah.
Renee, what do you think of it? I unfortunately have to use Dropbox every single day, so I was not able to install it on my system. But I am curious because I have an iPad that I did install the beta on, and in general, I think it's AirPlay and handoff settings, there's now an option to toggle on the mouse and cursor option. So I did that and just sat there kind of one day.
No, I mean, it's like? Really cool. Like I was using Sidecar anyway, because like I have like it's a weird world we live in. I have a mini LED HDR display on this M1 MacBook Pro, and that I'm editing in Final Cut. And now I can have like the full thing on a mini LED HDR iPad Pro next to me. So I have like a full HDR workflow that would have been not impossible, but like not like Simpsons level impossible, but like $80,000. There's some ridiculous amount of money just like 5-6 years ago. And now that's just like an escalation, because with Sidecar, you were just giving your iPad over to the Mac. It ceased being an iPad anymore, but now you can have, like, you need a Mac to start it. You can't start it on an iOS device yet, because of idiosyncrasies and how that all works. But as long as you have a Mac, you can have 2 other iPads, 2 other Macs, an iPad and a Mac, and it works just like you think. It detects which direction your cursor is going in. If you go beyond if you keep pushing beyond the side of the device, and it detects another device, like it'll just go right over in that direction, and you just control it. Like it is so weird to describe it because it is so simple, and describing simple things is so difficult. But it is if they are distinct devices, but you are controlling them with one device. And I hate to say it, it's like the most cliche thing. It just works. You're opening things, you're closing things, you're doing things, you're doing iOS-y things, like on the iOS-y things, Mac things, opening windows, closing windows, launching things, typing things. And I like that there's both, because sometimes I really just want an extra display, like even like an Apple TV, like I'll just turn that next to display, turn an iPad on next to display, watch my videos at different sizes and different ways to like look for mistakes. But as distinct devices, it is so nice that I could be doing this and not add any burden to this device, like no extra GPU load, nothing. Have an iPad over here, and I can go and quickly write a message without taking my eyes off you, Micah, and then go back and act like I'm paying attention again while I'm doing this, but still like sending that sarcastic message to the Twit Discord. Like it is so. I don't want to say magic, because it's not magic. It's just really clever application of compute technology.
Yeah, and it also works Mac to Mac, doesn't it?
Yeah, right now I have it. My third monitor is my Mac Mini.
Yeah. So that's exactly one of the things that I'm anticipating, like in the near future, Renee. The idea of I can have my 3-4 screen setup, my Budokan wall of sound, like exactly my wall of monitors. But just as you say, when I'm transcoding a DVD. I don't know that it's running on its own Mac Mini. However, that's what it's actually doing. It's not like one computer that has 4 screens onto it. It's like on this screen, everything will be done by its own isolated set down computer, and that's this is part of the payoff. We don't always get such an explicit payoff for investing in the Apple ecosystem, but this was one of the reasons why I pulled the trigger on the iPad Pro last year. Because I can't spend $1,100, $1,200 with just willy-nilly. However, the fact that but I could be able to use this as a separate display on my desktop when I'm traveling, all the times where I've got a deadline, I've got a research project, I wanted an extra monitor on my MacBook, but I certainly can't bring a second display with me. And now universal control, knowing that this is not going to just be the thing that I use when I'm going to be spending 3 or 4 hours in Boston for the day in meetings and stuff. This is going to be something that enhances all of my workflows in the office. This is why you have to mitigate. Yes, there is an Apple tax on a lot of things, but sometimes the intangibles are actually make up for the expense and then some.
That, of course, is all about universal control. I am pumped to get to give this a go whenever it comes out. I'm using Sidecar right now to be the computer, the display that I use to monitor what's going on. It's where the zoom goes, because I can put it right up beneath my webcam, which is handy. There are a lot of other...
Can I say one last
absolutely.
thing? I'm sorry, I forgot to say one thing that's super exciting though is that I'm hoping to see a lot of developers use Sidecar, not to exploit Sidecar not just as an external display, but as an external user interface control surface. The idea of having an iPad flat on the desk that is like, here's my color picker, here is my a scrubber controller for video. I really think that's a huge opportunity that the control bar kind of slapped at this, but the idea of having an iPad mini that you're just using for buttons and knobs and controls, that would be pretty damn slick.
That would be delightful. All right. So a few other things that are coming in, should be coming in iOS 15.4 include a bunch of new emoji, including, as Renee mentioned earlier, the melting face emoji, the one that continues to make me incredibly uncomfortable, which is the lip bite emoji, an invisible...
what is possibly wrong with the lip bite emoji?
Stress.
Are they worse than feet?
No, nothing's worse than that. So that's, lip bite's pretty bad, but nothing's worse than that. And I think one that I will definitely be using a lot of, which is the invisible person emoji. It's just got an outline of a person, and it's reminiscent of comic books where the artist would show that a person was either invisible or kind of undetected by drawing an outline around the person.
We all feel invisible sometimes, Micah.
Exactly. So when I'm in the group chat and everybody else is not paying attention to the thing that I said, I can just send that emoji. And
passive aggressive emoji. We're finally getting to that point in the development system.
Yes, that's precisely what it is.
Or maybe you want to be. Maybe for me, sometimes I just want to be invisible. I'm like, I don't want to.
That's great too. I can think of if you have like a roommate or something and they are a chatty, maybe I've had this experience in my past is what I'm saying, a very chatty roommate. If I could have just sent that emoji
right there.
if I could have just sent that emoji and been like, this is the time when I just want to go into the kitchen and get the beverage I was trying to get without having a 3-hour conversation before I go back to the space that I was in. It's just like invisible emoji.
Micah? What does it really mean? What does a beverage say about you?
Any other iOS 15.4 tidbits worth talking about?
Can we mention one of the most interesting and I think positive? One of the most positive ones is they've added a pregnant man emoji, or it's being called the pregnant man emoji, which is a human with male secondary sex characteristics who also has what appears to be a pregnancy belly, which is yes it can be funny for, oh my god, I can't believe I ate 15 calzones but I won the hat and the t-shirt, woo, but also it kind of reflects that there are for instance transgender men who might be carrying a baby. There might be I've always, every time that there is a new emoji proposed, that's always a really fascinating thing to dig into, because it always speaks to what society is going through at that time. New awareness, new tamping down of ignorance. Society changes, like, okay, well now a needle does not mean like I'm withdrawing blood. A needle probably means I'm receiving a vaccination. So we need to change that emoji. Now we actually need people with breathing masks as an emoji, because that's part of what society is going through. So it's such a fascinating window. I think that in 1,000 years from now, that's going to be it's going to be like the ice core samples that we see that people take to say, okay, here's what was going on in 2021, because we can see one of the few true international methods of communication is the emoji, and here is part of the language that we needed to add. Here's the lexicography that was missing that we had to add in 2021, 2022. I just thought that was very, very interesting. Of course, Fox News is a bit upset about it, because apparently the tech industry is continuing to try to gaslight real America, but oh well.
Well, I am not going to gaslight real America when I take this break before we come back.
Before you
with
go to the
loads
break,
more.
Micah, can I just yell out one last beta feature that's interesting?
One last feature.
It looks like
you can have it.
Better support for progressive web apps, especially for notifications for progressive web apps, which a lot of people are excited about. On the same day we lose Wordle. Yes, I understand the irony of all of this, but the universe acts the way the universe acts.
That was very interesting to see how kind of different people reacted to that. In fact, we might chat about that a little bit later. But the progressive web apps, yes, push notifications on iOS like they are on macOS, as well as Apple has introduced the MX, XR, that's what it is. The XR API, so that websites can take advantage of AR, VR applications with their websites. So right now, there's not really a headset that would work with iOS. So that would be something that could potentially be coming in the future. And then also, it gets a little bit easier for you to choose the icon that shows up whenever you as the developer, to choose the icon that will show up for someone whenever they add your app or your website to the desktop. I remember reading this page of like, you have to name this file, this file, this file, and this file, and they have to be named just like this. They need to be in this part of the HTML tag. They need to have this
we had to
file
do it for
format.
They had to do preview.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's like all these different kinds. Instead of using the standard, which is just an image that's labeled icon. Now, Safari is, I guess the system is using the standard one. So that will be good as well. Now we will take that break, and we will come back with lots more to talk about, including a conversation Renee recently had with Apple's head of user privacy. But first, this episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Wealthfront. You've heard about Wealthfront. Look, a lot of investment apps make it easy to start trading. But just because it's easy to does not mean you know what you're doing. Wealthfront makes it easy to invest and easy to grow your savings with a diversified portfolio that balances your other riskier bets. You can start investing in no time with Wealthfront's classic portfolio or make it your own with things that you care about. That includes socially responsible funds, technology funds, yes, even crypto trusts, or hundreds of other investments. Wealthfront was designed by financial experts to help you turn your good ideas into great investments without the hassle of doing everything yourself. If you don't want to spend hundreds of hours trying to lower your tax bill, well, don't worry, because they will help you do that. Not sure how to rebalance your portfolio, or like me, even know what rebalancing is? Well, they do it for you automatically. Wealthfront is trusted with more than $28 billion in assets, helping nearly 500,000 people build their wealth. All you need is $500 to get started. Grow your wealth the easy way and let Wealthfront do the work for you. And the best part is, their product is so simple yet powerful that it has a 4.9 out of 5-star rating in the Apple App Store. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. That's wealthfront.com/MacBreak to start building your wealth. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak and get started today. Thank you, Wealthfront, for sponsoring this week's episode of MacBreak Weekly. All right, Renee, it is time to brag, because I was really excited to see that you got to speak to Apple's head of user privacy. And I was hoping you could just tell us a little bit about who you spoke to and the conversation you had. Of course, folks should go watch the video for the whole thing, but maybe you can give us a little taste.
Yeah, it's Eric Neuschwander, who's head of, I think it's technically director of user privacy. But like Apple has different kinds of directors. It's like marketing people, engineering people. He's clearly like a high order bit nerd engineer, because he gets his hands dirty on architecting and deploying all of this stuff. And it's fascinating. It was World Privacy Day. And, he wanted to talk about the things that they were doing with mail, namely like hide my email and mail privacy protection, because that is such an old system and it was never architected to have any understanding of security and privacy. And people have tried to graft various levels of security and privacy to it over the years, but it's hard because everyone uses different clients and every implementation is different. And Apple is doing these things where you can supply sort of like burner emails to any company that you sign up for and then manage them, but also a version of private relay where if an email comes in, marketing companies use these things called tracking pixels. And basically there's like a little invisible pixel that's included with the email. And when you open that pixel, because it's stored on their server, they get a ping from it. And then they know where you are geographically based on your IP address, when you opened it, how many times you opened it, all this information that maybe you don't want to supply to them. Like even just validating that your email is real, that someone opened it, and that makes it more valuable when they resell it to the next mailing list company, all those things. So now what happens is as it goes to you, Apple uses a private relay service, which means they have no knowledge of what it's doing, but it basically opens all the email for you at random times and at random IP addresses, so that nobody has any idea when whether you actually saw it, because all they get is an Apple relay back, or what time it was, where you were, any of those data points. He also really kindly touched on a lot of other stuff that Apple's doing in general and their philosophy and what it's like working for a company where everybody from Steve Jobs in that famous interview with Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher went on about privacy, to Tim Cook saying it's a human right, to Craig Federighi, just superhero 3-point stance dropping into the back cave of every Apple Park WWDC presentation, to where they keep Eric, and the other privacy people hidden in the dark, it looks like most of the time. So it was just fascinating to hear their philosophy, like, because they really believe in building this stuff in. Like a feature gets proposed and they think about the privacy applications from the beginning. They can't like just shellac it on at the end when they want to kick the product out the door. It has to meet these privacy goals along the entire development process. And just the responsibility. And we also talked a little bit about like when Apple makes these statements, we're going to hold them to account, and he thinks that's a good thing too. Like I think everybody knows they're going to stumble, they're going to fall it sometimes, but making those statements means that we get to like hold them into account way more than a company who just comes out and says, yeah, we're tracking everything you do. Can you please put our goggles back on for another hour?
Yeah, that's that part I think was particularly good to hear, like why that is so important passionate, and like what power it gives us. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that some people forget, like when I spoke to Tom and Tim about Apple Silicon and their love of the Mac, I got so many comments from people saying, it's really gratifying to hear there's people at Apple who still love the Mac, because honestly, I was worried. And that's fair enough, because you really didn't see that passion for a while. And the same thing, like it's easy to get into philosophical arguments about things like, is data repatriation okay when it's France asking versus when it's China asking? Or is data encryption important when the US government wants a backdoor key? Or, are child advocacy groups right to push Apple for CSAM filtering when, privacy advocates are saying that this is the beginning of the end? Like all of these, and one of the questions I had for him that I'm most fascinated about is, you have people who are adamant that their position is the extreme correct position and that everybody else is wrong, and yet his job is to balance this not only between those different viewpoints, but between the usability that we need as the end user of that product. And it's not an easy job, but I was just fascinating to hear how he approached it.
Yeah. Everyone should go check that out. YouTube.com/Rene Ritchie. Go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, I saw the interview. I thought it was really, really great, as usual. Great stuff from you, Rene. And also, as usual, you can always tell what is part of the culture of a company when they talk about that thing. What is PR? What is crisis management? What is, okay, I guess this would be nice things for us to dabble in right now. When Apple talks about security, when Apple talks about privacy, as Rene says, they can be a little bit inconsistent sometimes. And sometimes you can expect that, like any big company, they're going to fumble. But you can't really doubt that their interest in this is absolutely sincere, and it's baked right in. You can't you just can't separate that from the identity of the company. And so it's always, that's why it's always interesting to hear interviews like this, where you basically get to see the lights on behind the eyes turned up an extra 10 to 20% when they're talking about something that that they're really, really passionate about, and that they spend so much of their time thinking about.
And I think that some of that might come from the fact that everyone's always trying to get their data. So I think that there's a certain paranoia, people trying to hack into their servers and find what's the next thing, and so they've been under that attack for the last 20 years, and so I think that that creates also kind of affects that culture. It's not like it's a theoretical thing for them. It's everyone's trying to get our data all the time. All of our employees, everyone. I mean, you have to worry about, you build. It's great to build a big glass, headquarters, but then you have to worry about the windows, and and all of those things are things that you have to think about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just was thinking about whenever that was first being built and those drones flying over and how they had to deal with that. But
that's not even the thing. I mean, the biggest problem is really cameras seeing through the windows. If you start writing your algorithms on the whiteboard, someone with a big enough camera can, so you have to, but so that's the kind of pressure that they're under all the time, and so I think that they're under the pressure of needing to be private and needing to be secret all the time. So I think that greatly amplifies, this is a real world problem for them every day, and that I think affects how they view it.
It's really got to be disillusioning when you're working at Apple. You've been given this really, really high profile project with lots of staff, lots of budget, lots of everything, and you have those moments of doubt about whether it's working correctly or whether Apple really supports it. And at that point, you really have to ask yourself, is this one of those fake projects that they're making me do so that other people will not look at the actual project? Oh, damn.
Yeah, which of the 500 patents
there is no hover car.
Are wrong, and which one is a real one?
I really think that a digital hat would be great. All right, maybe you don't believe in me, Mr. Cook, but
with a lot of these big companies, so many things end up at dead ends. At some point, you just worry about the craft. You just worry about, you're just going to work on the thing, and they may cancel it right at the very end, or it may not come out. I mean, I talked to someone who used to work at Apple a long time ago, and he said there's products that got all the way to the end, and they just decided there's not enough big enough market, or this is going to be a distraction. It's not going to generate enough revenue. And he was like, I would have put that, I would have used that every day. And it was just one of those. So it's a hard puzzle in the sense that Apple is so disciplined in that area where they'll just kill a project with hundreds of millions of dollars into the process to protect the brand and to protect their focus.
Yeah, it used to be a much larger problem for hiring than it used to be, because there was a time where, again, you're an engineer, you have an expertise, you were hired away from another company where this was going to be, we're going to be using your expertise and your research to build an actual working thing. Apple hired you away to develop their version of it. They decided after 4 years, no. And unfortunately, you can't tell anybody about it. You can't tell anybody what you can tell people vaguely what your job was and the sort of technologies you were working with, but you can't say here is what I was doing for 4 years and use that to springboard the next generation of your career. AI research, for instance, was one of the biggest bottlenecks. I think that's one of the reasons why Apple started allowing their researchers to publish white papers, because it's a hell of a thing to ask a researcher to do research but not share that research, not publish it, because at some point you're not going to be of any use to Apple anymore, and you're going to have to be able to say, here's what I've been doing, here's the papers I've published, here are my credentials.
There's also, though, a lift of when you can't say anything. Like you say, I used to work at Apple, and they say, what did you do? I can't say anything. That has a certain, there's some juice there. Like there's a little bit of juice. Absolutely. Because I had a company that we were a big game company, and they were looking at having us do streams, and they were like, so who have you worked for? And I said, I can't tell you. Well, what projects? I can't tell you. Like I just was like, I can't tell you anything. He's like, how do I know to hire you? And I said, well, who someone recommended us? And he said, because we don't even have a web page. We didn't have a web page that even talked about it. And he said, well, you have to trust them. And then we got hired. But,
I am so going to play that card sometime. I swear to God.
It so works. But it was true. I couldn't show anything, but it was really effective. So I think that the reason I bring that up is because, Apple, I think if you see Apple on someone's LinkedIn, and especially the ones that have Apple and don't say anything, like I work at Apple. Like, and there's a lot of them like that. And you're like, okay, they're working
mail
on something.
clerk started 20 years ago and has never been updated.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. A couple of more things. Apple, this is February, and February is both Heart Month and Black History Month. Yes, we do get the shortest month of the year for some reason, but they are spotlighting Black voices during Black History Month, and also spotlighting some very interesting resources with Heart Month. Now, I wanted to talk about both of them because I think there's some really cool stuff here for Heart Month. There are some nice Apple Fitness Plus features that are specifically for cardio, energizing workouts for Heart Month, as well as some unique challenges for the Apple Watch that you can get with the badges, and then some really interesting books that have been highlighted, including Heart, A History, which talks about kind of how we have over time, doctors have over time learned more about the heart and been able to kind of understand how it works and what we can do to help it. And then also some updates that they've provided on the ongoing heart and movement study. So if you have the Apple Research app and you went ahead and signed up to be part of that heart and movement study, there's some information there worth checking out. And then the other thing is that for Black History Month, there's some really cool Apple Music campaigns that involve music around healing. Apple Fitness Plus, which also has some special workouts with playlists that feature Black artists. And I like, too, that there are some really neat Time to Walk conversations. So Time to Walk is an app for the Apple Watch that's part of the Fitness Plus feature set that lets you listen to someone while you walk. And so you and typically the person that's also there will talk to you and walk with you as you're doing it. So it's just, you kind of feel involved with the process. And then the very, very cool Apple Watch Unity Lights face is out. Folks can get that. It's, I'm going to read this. The band is complemented, well, I'll talk about the band in a second, by the Unity Lights watch face, which is designed using 2D ray tracing, a technology never before implemented for a watch face. Each pixel on the screen simulates the light and shadow falling across it, and the movement of the clock hands simultaneously reveal and hide the light, changing dynamically throughout the day. The Unity Lights watch face can be customized to be a full screen or circular dial and includes a black and white option, tick marks, and up to 4 complications. I love this watch face. It's so cool looking. It's just really neat. And what I love about it is as you look at it throughout the day, the way that it changes and you see the shadows is really cool. And then, of course, I think this is Apple's second, Renee can probably correct me, Apple's second Black Unity watch band. This one is the Braided Solo Loop band, which features the colors of the Pan-African flag. So I, of course, picked that up as well because I'm trying to be a collector of the Pride Edition and now the Black Unity Edition bands, which are very neat. And, of course, Apple donates a portion of the proceeds to some different organizations. So, just wanted to highlight those things. You can check out the news, the press releases, which I'll include in the show notes, that has all sorts of information about these different initiatives and highlights that are there. So you can check all of that stuff out. But wanted to give that a little brief highlight.
I'd love to see how they put together the Unity Lights watch face because my first impression was that, wow, what an interesting flex about how powerful the processor inside the Apple Watch is. But then immediately, like, if they're actually calculating things, how is that affecting battery life? And I'm sure it's not affecting battery life. So I've loved to hear about like exactly what went into this and how they handle rendering dynamic watch faces in such a way that it doesn't have an appreciable effect on the battery. I mean, come to think of it, it's not as though it's probably not an always on watch face, is it?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me swipe over to it and see if it's
It is, but it hides the second hand when you're in always on mode.
Got it. Yeah, that is. I would love to hear about that too, Andy. That would be interesting to hear what.
It's not updating the screen except for once every minute if it has to.
How they went about developing this with the ray tracing. Because, the last time I heard conversation about ray tracing, it was about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One S or whatever. So,
Right.
The fact that it's happening on my Apple Watch is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think that it could be something that's cached too. So it doesn't have to. You don't have to actually render it. And ray tracing has become is pretty efficient. When you have a single point and you're not animating it, it can be pretty efficient it doesn't have to count because it doesn't have to update everything. It just has to update what's changing. And so it can become a lot more efficient. It's still more, I'm trying to find it. Like this is the Unity one?
You got to go to the new face. You got to go to the new faces and tap.
You got new faces and I added Unity, but I don't see what I'm looking at that's ray tracing. It's got the green and the red.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the old Unity face?
No, he's got it.
It's
just not.
So that's the one with the green on top and the red on the bottom, but there's another one that I'm missing. That's the one I'm looking for, or that's the old one?
John, can you pull up the newsroom page?
I think you got the right one, Alex.
Row 29.
I just don't see those hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tenant. Yeah, I don't know.
And then, go.
I don't want to take up the thing.
No, that's okay, because I am kind of
the
curious.
10 and the 9, that part I don't understand. Like, that doesn't look like anything. That doesn't look like ray tracing to me. That's what I got when I got Unity. And when I did the Unity watch face, I got that 10 and 9 that we see in the thing, or I see in the newsroom. Bottom, John.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not showing up, because I think that he's talking about that, the one from last year, Renee, where it's just like 2 splotches of color.
Yeah, and that's what shows up on my watch. Maybe I need to update it. Maybe
that's probably what it is. It just hasn't updated for you.
Sorry for all the listeners listening to Alex. Like I don't understand. I don't understand.
Is this the one you're looking for?
But the new Unity face, the one with the 2D ray tracing.
That's what I'm holding up.
Yeah.
Oh, Renee's got it on the screen.
I ran the update before the show, and I just forgot. I just went to my phone. I was like, "Why is this not new?" And it turns out it's because it's I didn't hit the approve the new legal whatever.
Oh yeah,
So that's why I was like, it's not there. Anyway, never mind.
All right, folks.
I'm sorry. Do we have time for a quick thing?
You have a quick sec, yes.
Okay, sorry. It would be amazing if Apple created an API for this kind of thing, like really super dynamic watch faces that aren't just simply complications, not just simply, oh, well, there's a little animated person on it. Like there's a Dutch designer by the name, I had to look up the name, Martin Baas, who like 10 years ago came up with an art series called Real Time, where they're clocks. But it's a video projection, so that like there's one of these installed in the train station, airport station in Amsterdam, where it looks like there is just a guy behind a round panel of frosted glass who is just simply drawing in like the letter, drawing in the hands, scraping off the paint from the old one, drawing in the new one, and he makes versions of this like in all kinds of different articulations. And imagine I would be okay with having an Apple Watch that doesn't work with my Android phone if when I tell the time there's just like there's just a dude behind the watch face that is like physically with a Sharpie drawing in the hands and erasing them once a minute. And that's it's exactly the sort of stylish thing for Apple to enable this sort of time-based moving art on your wrist that I think Apple would just really, really dig. So it would be wonderful if they came up with a low power API for it.
There's something so weird about them because they've had a tool for years that makes all these animated backgrounds for iPhones and iPads, and they just there's no public way to use it. Like I would give anything to have like Brad Ellis and all these talented designers have access to this tool and make us like a bunch of. It's not like Apple makes a ton of animated wallpaper. We get like 2 a year maybe.
We can't design we can't really get any designed watch faces like this. Like regardless of the animated version, I just want the watch. I just want to be able to design watch faces. I just want to be able to. Yeah, I mean, I don't. This is definitely a world that I feel like there's something there that must be really important that they won't let people build their own watch faces. Like it's just, and I get that there might be a power consumption
Calvin
thing,
and
but
Hobbes
I don't know.
lawsuits.
Yeah, there's something because I'm just like I can't understand why I can't, because I have very specific things I want to put on the watch face, like seconds. And I don't want the sports one. Everyone always sends me tweets when I say that, but I just want seconds on a bunch and some data, and I want to be able to design that. And the fact that I can't design something simple, on my watch face just makes me insane. So I'm just kind of giving up. I just use it for timers. I find because I can't have the watch face, I just kind of really got into my watch. My watch is still better than what I had before, but I'm not as excited about it because I can't. If I was able to design watch faces and do it exactly the way I want, I think I'd be much more passionate about my watch. It's something that I use, but I don't like. So I'm not over the moon about it.
I also use mine for a timer most of the time. I do like that, but I like
that's the number one use. I mean, number one use for my watch is timers.
For me, it's that, and it's not worth like reaching over the bed to the nightstand to answer that.
Yeah. I do like the fact that I can turn the alarm off. Snooze on my turning off snooze from your watch is useful.
Pausing my Apple TV as well. If I've gotten up and I'm across the room and I want to, I want to be able to see whatever it is, then I will pause it. So yeah, there are a few of those kind of lazy day features that I like to use, as well as the fact that it's always tracking my my health stuff. All right, we are going to take a quick break before we come back with the rest of the show. But I want to tell you about CacheFly, because guess what? This episode of MacBreak Weekly is literally brought to you by CacheFly. How do we know that CacheFly is amazing? It's because we've been using them for more than 10 years now, and it's been pretty awesome. Deliver your video with CacheFly, the best throughput and global reach, making your content infinitely scalable. You can go live in hours, not days, with sub 1 second latency. Ditch your unreliable WebRTC solution for their WebSocket live video workflow that is scalable to millions of users. That lets you beat the competition because no one wants to wait for content to load. With CacheFly's ultra-low latency video streaming, you will dramatically increase your site's and applications' speed for global audiences. Reach your audience anywhere in the world with 50-plus locations around the globe. Content will be delivered closer to your customers, outperforming local CDNs. You can take a load off your origin servers and reduce those S3 bills. So reducing the bandwidth and increasing your cache hit ratio to 100% with CacheFly's storage optimization system. and the fully managed CDN solutions. With CashFly's elite managed packages, you're going to get the VIP treatment, 24/7 support and response times in less than an hour. And in most cases, they will already know of any issues and will be working to fix them before your team even knows. With CashFly, you'll get ultra low latency video streaming that will deliver video to more than 1 million concurrent users, lightning fast gaming, which will deliver downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages, mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site will load faster on any device, and multi-CDN for redundancy and failover, which intelligently balances your traffic across multiple providers, giving you the shortest routes and mitigating against performance glitches. CashFly is 10 times faster than traditional methods, and it's on 6 continents. They are 30% faster than other major CDNs with a 98% cache hit ratio, and have had how much? 100% availability in the past 12 months. Best of all, they have 24/7, 365 priority support, so you know they'll always be there for you when you need them. Just for Twit listeners, CashFly is giving away a complimentary detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. See if you are overpaying 20% or more for CDN. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. That's twit.cashfly.com. Thank you, CashFly, for bringing everyone this episode of MacBreak Weekly. We appreciate it. This continues to be awesome. All right. We're holding up a lighter, a candle, pouring a bit of butterbeer out. I'm trying to think of other Harry Potter references. I don't know a whole lot about it, but Harry Potter Wizards Unite, it has been discontinued. This was a Pokemon Go style game that was Harry Potter themed. And I'm just curious, Renee, I think you still play Pokemon Go. What are your thoughts on? Yes, exactly. I think, you and her are the people who are just like keeping that game alive. What are your thoughts on sort of the life of Harry Potter Wizards Unite, and maybe why this one ended up dropping off before Pokemon Go did, and if we're going to continue to see these kinds of real world sort of AR experiences?
I mean, I'd like to think that it was just because a lot of people decided that J.K. Rowling was intolerable and we're never going to play it again. But I think it's much more likely that it was just the worst parts of Pokemon Go's gameplay made into one single app for like, it was like the most annoying, exasperating, arduous aspects of Pokemon Go all packaged together into like what looked like a cheap franchise grab. And I think people see through that kind of stuff. It wasn't a good game at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter what your IP is if you're not a good game that people enjoy and want to play. And I think Pokemon Go benefited from being novel at the time, but also being a beloved franchise and having interesting, like not, it is annoying. Like there's many aspects that are annoying with Pokemon Go, but there's also a lot of fun parts too. And I think it was just way better balanced.
I played Harry Potter Wizards Unite for longer than I played Pokemon Go, but I still ended up giving it up. I don't really play any of those. I
dropped it in a trash can outside Chick-fil-A and I never looked back.
Exactly. But anyway, I just wanted to give a little moment for that.
I think the Kingdom Rush is amazing. Sorry. That's the only game I play. Every time I see a game, I'm like, well, I only play one level on one game, and I've been playing the same level for the last 6 months. I'm getting better at it.
What about you, Andy? Do you have any mobile games you play?
Honestly, my mobile game is Lightroom Mobile. It feels exactly the same role that a mobile game on my phone plays, which is that when I have some downtime, whether I'm waiting for a train or whether I'm just trying to not do actual work, I will go through my Google Photos or my Apple Photos reel. I will find a photo that I took a day ago, a month ago, a year ago that I never did anything with. And then like the next time I check the time, it's like, 53 minutes have gone by and I've done like 3 or 8 different iterations of this, 4 of which I think are really, really cool. So I have to say that really is my game.
Nice. All right, let's talk about this rumor, and then we'll head into the picks of the week. I wanted to talk about this report from Mark Gurman. This one is not, as far as I can tell, I've scoured the page, and this one is not a newsletter article, but is instead just an article. Apple to rival Square by turning iPhones into payment terminals. So the idea here is that you could just use the iPhone itself or an iPad even, thanks to the NFC chip that's used for Apple Pay, to create a little payment terminal system, which I would quite like, I think, if there was the ability to create a little, store that you wanted to create at a farmer's market or a pop-up or something like that, and to be able to just tap my phone, Apple Pay to someone, the cost of whatever it happens to be. Of course, it's unclear yet what exactly this could look like, how exactly this is going to be released. But in the article, Gurman said Apple may begin rolling out the feature via a software update in the coming months. The company is expected to release the first beta version of iOS 15.4 in the near future, which is likely to see a final release for consumers as early as the spring. So this could potentially come as early as the spring. It could be later, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this potential feature in general, and if you see Apple, like, is this a space that Apple would want to be in, sort of small business payment processing? And this would go into the services category, right?
Well, I think that the interesting thing is the Apple Pay makes it relatively easy for them to implement. They just have to, ID the connection between folks and make that a little bit, reduce some of the friction. The real challenge with charging people isn't really making the charge. It is managing that charge. Okay, where did that money come from, and what did they buy, and what did they, that's the thing that Square, when you have a Square terminal, there's a lot more to it than just I can, validate a charge between two phones. It's keeping track and managing that. So if Apple is able to do that and be able to, it has to either integrate with something that can manage that, but it's the entire charge history that's going to be important to that retailer, and we don't know what that looks like yet. But as far as being able to casually, what this sounds like it's doing that's different is I can give money to a stranger. Like right now we can text money, to folks, but I can basically, do that. And of course, the question also is will this only work with iPhones, or if you're going to make it a teller system, you kind of have to be able to support Android as well, so that can work. And how does that work? And maybe you say I can only do iPhones, but it does become much harder if someone walks in and says, I can't take your money because I need an iPhone.
Yeah,
only
is
iPhones
it
in America too,
support
probably.
Google Play?
Yeah. This is also interesting if you think way in the future. More and more governments are starting to look into digital currencies just as regular legal currency, as fiat tender. And we're not talking about Ethereum. We're not talking about, do you know that a character from The Office is creating their own cryptocurrency that's going to wind up really
what?
But yeah. Oh God, this is
which one?
What was his name? He's one of the salesmen. He was always doing a crossword puzzle.
Oh, Stanley Hudson.
Stanley, thank you. That's it. Because there was a joke in which the Dwight Schrute was temporary manager. Hey, in my mode, actually, you earn a Schrute.
Oh, it's Stanley Nichols.
Right, so he was doing a crypto that. That's not going to end well. But no. Actually, even the U.S. government, the Fed has actually just released a long paper. I think just a week or two ago, saying that we're looking into this. We're going to go cautiously, but we're definitely investigating this. Here are the problems that we think we'd like to address before we start thinking about a digital dollar. And we're opening up the phone lines for comments from people who are invested in this. But you could imagine what happens if 5 years from now this becomes an even bigger thing than it is right now, and that a phone is kind of required to be a wallet for cash, not just an allegorical wallet. That this is how I pay. This is how I take money out of my wallet and give it to you, whether it is Ethereum, whether it is a federal currency. And you think that this is? I don't think that this is necessarily what Apple is doing. I think one of the questions is this something that any Apple phone user will be able to set up point to point, or is this simply something that if you are the creator of PayPal, if you are the creator of another payment processor, you can actually access this API if you have the right permissions. But it would be interesting to see if Apple, if 5 years from now, phones have to have that ability to be able to do that kind of point-to-point transaction to exchange digital currency just on a regular basis without having to go through any sort of a payment processor as a middleman.
And I have to say that for 90% of my transactions when I'm out of the house, it's all through Apple Pay. Like I don't even use my credit card or anything else. I just put money into my Apple Pay all the time. So I just have, that's my wallet, and I walk around and if someone won't take it, usually I go somewhere else. So that usually is, at first it was an experiment and I prioritized, but at this point, I don't carry cash. And so that I have to be able to do that. And so it's a really, I think for a growing number of people, it's become that where you don't really want to touch the cash, with COVID, you're just kind of like, I don't really want to touch that. And I don't want to handle it. And so it's become that for me. I know when I go to buy groceries, gas, even at this farmer's market, I walk around with my phone and everybody has something that you can do that with.
Yeah, but it is going to be this is another topic that could be an hour conversation because it's so interesting. But it's the weakness of those kind of payment systems, whether it is Apple Pay, whether it's PayPal, whether it's any sort of a tap to pay system, is that at some point a credit card company has to go through it. At some point, the user has to have a bank account. Not all people have access to banking, and the ability to exchange digital currency as easily as they could exchange cash, the ability to receive money as easily as currency without having to have a fixed address, without having to show up at a bank, without having to prove to Visa, MasterCard, American Express that, yes, please give me a $500 credit limit and let me have a credit card so I can have those digits that will allow me to access these services. That could be extremely transformative.
Well, and the thing is that there's parts of Africa that people are using their mobile phone right now to pay for almost everything. And they have, it's actually an access is a magnifier for them because they can't get the cash, they can't get those things, but they can pay each other back and forth in mobile and buy things and sell them and everything else. And so that is it's already become a huge access enabler for, different parts of the world.
Yeah.
All right, let us move in to the final stage of the show, which is the picks of the week. I think, Andy, we will start with you. Tell us about your pick of the week.
Mine is a set of lockpicks. It's the Covert Instruments Genesis lockpick set, which you can go at covertinstruments.com. A lot of you are pumping your fists in the air. Oh yes, the lockpicking lawyer. Yeah, that's the lockpicking lawyer is one of the great channel on YouTube, where he is an expert locksmith, lockpicker and locksmith, and he will spend these videos of just 2 or 3 minutes and of the same format in which he will show you this incredibly impressive lock, and then he'll give you like a 20-second tour of it, and then he'll take out one of his lockpicking tools and say, okay, good, and try to pick it. Say, okay, good set out of 1. Nothing out of 2, nothing out of 3, false set on 3, and he'll get it open. And so this is one of the reasons why whenever you're buying a lock, particularly if you go into Home Depot, right there in the store, go hold your phone and do a search for lockpicking lawyer and then the name of the lock that you're looking at, because chances are excellent that like I did, I'm putting in a smart lock partly to test out smart locks, but also because it'll solve a problem for me. But the first thing I did was, after getting the features, okay, we'll see what the pick resistance it is, and he was able to open it in 5 seconds. And that's not a concern if it's this guy who has had thousands and thousands of hours of expertise, and sometimes he will bring out a tool that he and a partner built specifically to defeat this kind of lock. What you worry about is when there is a common lockpicking tool that you don't need any expertise whatsoever to use. And even I haven't done anything with lockpicking or safe cracking since college. I think every nerdy kid has a story either about how they got into magic, hacking, or lockpicking, because oftentimes they're all the same thing, where people believe what they want to believe, and our existence is largely a collective illusion. The moment that if you're 17, 18, 19 and you learn that all locks are a lie, that will change your outlook on a lot of things in life. But so I just ordered this. It's $25. It contains a set of simple picks and levers to like put pressure on the lock as you're trying to pick it, and have not used this tool ever. And I won't point out which one it is, but it's like a very simple tool. And within about 20 or 30 seconds, I got this lock open. And after actually watching a video on how to use that tool, which is a description of maybe 2 or 3 sentences, I was able to start opening it in like 5 to 10 seconds. So the news is not all bad. I'm glad that I found out about this. I'm going to basically take the one of the reasons that I picked this lock is because you can just basically take out the core, take it to a locksmith and say, hi, this is garbage. Sell me one that is like more pick resistant. But it does go to show that if you have one of these, not only is it fun to basically learn lock picking, but also just get this one specific tool, this one little lever, test out a lock that you're trying to buy. If security is a really big issue, find out how quickly this just someone with no experience can open it, because I don't worry about the pros when it comes to stuff like this. I worry about the knuckleheads, the people who like might have seen a video like this and like, so now they've got one of these in their pocket saying, hey, it's raining outside. Hey, maybe I can like pick open this door. Rake. Hey, look, I'm inside. Now that I'm here, let's see what the person gotten in their mail today. So that's the sort of stuff that you kind of want to protect against. It's only $25. The whole site is really cool, but this is a good starter set that comes in a nice case. They're very, very well made, and unfortunately, it will open your eyes to a much larger world once you start taking a look at this stuff.
Did you share a price? I forgot.
I'm sorry. I think it's $25. I could be, if it's the Genesis lockpick set. Yes, it's exactly $25.
All right. Renee Ritchie, tell us about your pick of the week.
So I was complaining on Twitter, which is something I do really, really frequently, because Final Cut Pro is a terrific tool. I love it. It's the fastest thing to get work off of SD cards and onto YouTube for me, but it's perplexingly missing some features. Like it needs, like if I drag stuff around, it doesn't align the way it does in Keynote. And also there's no strip silence, which is a great feature in Logic Pro that'll just go through and automatically put cuts for you wherever dialogue ends and begins. So then you can just go through and eliminate all that stuff, or it'll actually eliminate it for you. But they don't have that in Final Cut. You have to do that all manually. So Raphael, I'm going to get his last name wrong, but well-known YouTuber Raphael recommended to me this app called TimeBolt, where it's not a plugin for any existing editor, although it'll export XML for Final Cut and Premiere and Resolve and all those things. And all it does is ingest the video, and then you set the parameters like for how long the attack and release is, and it'll go through and cut out all the silence in your video. And I believe it'll do audio as well. I was only paying attention to the video part. Similar to how Logic Pro works. And then you can either edit in that app if you're only doing something really simple, or you can go and export that XML, load it into Final Cut, and a lot of the grunt work in editing A-roll or voiceover is done for you. It's not exactly what I want, because I prefer to edit inside multicam or compound clips, because that way, if I make a change to the root clip, it'll propagate across every cut that I make for that clip. Where with this, it'll just give me the end result of all those cuts. So if I want to color correct something, I have to do it on cut by cut basis, which is just not how I like to work. Ooh. But I love the idea of this. And if there was, if you are just doing things where you're cutting single clips, or you're cutting voiceover, or you're cutting A-roll, and you don't care about compound or multicam, it is a phenomenal time saver. The pricing is a little bit like, there's a subscription you can get for like $20 a month, $100 a year, or you can pay once, $300 lifetime. So you got to figure out the value prop for you. But for a lot of people, especially when you're editing, time is, you can make more money, you can never make more time. So it's absolutely worth looking into, and it's M1 compatible, and the people I know who use it really, really like it.
Nice. All right. TimeBolt at timebolt.io. Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
So I want to thank Hasmukh Gaja from South Africa, who sent me this case to play with, and I was like, I want to take a look at this case, and he's not part of the company. He just is a friend of mine, and anyway, so he sent it, and it's so great. So what it does is, this is Peak Designs, and you can see that I can this pops off. So this is the wallet part. One of the things we talked about on Office Hours at some point was that I have to have a wallet with my phone because otherwise I'll lose the phone or I'll lose the wallet, but I never lose both of them when they're together. And so I always have phones with wallets. And so anyway, I've had it for the last 5 or 6 years. So anyway, this one, but I've always wanted to be able to attach it to a tripod as well and be able to attach it to other things. And those don't mix well together. So what this one has, it's got a little mount that you'll see here, and it's magnetized. So it goes, this pops on. And this is my credit cards that are in here, that are there. And so this is something I can just kind of carry around. It's a wallet, it's a phone, it's, those things. But what's cool is that it also has, this is a tripod mount. So this is a tripod mount now, and I can just simply, it works really well. It just snaps in, and now it's, it's on. And it's, I don't know if it would survive a 9.1 earthquake, but probably a 6, and so, but it's, it's on there, and so now I have this, and it locks. So it's got this little, once the magnet guides it and gets it in there, but then it's really, I'll damage the case before it comes off. I have to push down here and then it'll pull off like that. And what's cool is that when you pull it down like this, it's the magnet keeps it from just falling off. So the magnet's enough to hold it. So if I pull it down, the magnet's enough to hold it. But so it's not like you do a quick release and your phone falls on the ground. So it's got kind of a nice setup, and they've got a bunch of different mounts. They've got mounts for your, so it really is on. It's mechanically connected, not magnetically connected, but the magnet makes it just pop on. Anyway, and so, but it has ones for your bike. It has ones for your car. It has, lots of other ones. These are the ones that
Sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, Siri's talking. Siri's like, anyway, so it's really cool. It's a really cool case. I had it for, and it's, anyway, that's my pick.
Yeah, that's a really cool pick. I think we may have talked about this line before, but actually seeing it in use there, especially that sort of locking mechanism that's very easy.
And stand. So you can open up really as a stand as well. So
did your friend send it to you and say, me and Alex, I've got this case for you. You've got to check it out. I've been using it for years and years. It's a very nice case. You've got to just
Yeah, he just, well, the funny part was he asked what my address was, and it just showed up, and he's like, I didn't know what was coming. Like it was just, so it was great. Yeah. So
try this case.
We've been friends for a long time. So anyway, I just wanted to call it out. So anyway, it's a really, really cool case.
Car mount, a bar mount, a bike mount, motorcycle mount.
Yeah. It's
Peak Design. It's like Peak Design is just one of those names where if they announce something, I just want to know about it. I don't know if I'm going to need it or not, but I know that it's going to be really well made and extremely well thought out. I have so much lust for their travel tripod. I've come so close to pulling the trigger to buying it. Say, you have compact tripods. I know, but I don't have that one. I know, but you're doing fine. Maybe you want $340 in the bank more than you want a travel tripod that you're not going to quite use that much. Yeah, but it's so well done. I'm supporting the designer. I'm supporting small business. Oh God, Andy, now you really are desperate. You are a small business. You are the smallest possible business. You are a freelance journalist in a rapidly collapsing market. They should be buying things from you.
My pick of the week, I read far too many stories in 2021 about people swallowing the AirPods they had in their ears. And so I began to get paranoid. I think twice I woke up and the AirPod had fallen out of my ear, and I was genuinely concerned that I checked my breathing. I'm like, am I having trouble breathing? So twice was enough for me to say, I've got to try out something else. I have a partner, and so there are two people that go to bed, and because of that, the way that I fall asleep is by listening to audiobooks from audible.com. Not currently a sponsor of this show, but certainly of the network. And so that helps me focus the part of my brain that wants to spin up on 1,000 different things. It just focuses on that, and then the rest of me can fall asleep. So because there's someone else in the bed, I obviously don't want to play that audiobook out loud and disturb their sleep. So I choose to listen to it. I was before using just one. I'm a side sleeper, so I would just put one AirPod into my ear and lay down and be able to listen to the audiobook at super low volume. But after all that paranoia and me sort of scrambling every night or every morning going, did I swallow it this time? I decided to invest in something else. This is called the AcousticSheep SleepPhones. I guess these are called the AcousticSheep SleepPhones. And essentially what it is a headband that wraps around your head. So you just put it over your forehead and then it loops down over your ears, kind of like one of those earmuff warmers. And inside of the SleepPhones band, there's a speaker on one side and a speaker on the other. And they're just sort of loose in there, but they are sewn into this really, really, really soft felt. And then the wire leads to the Bluetooth module that has the battery in it. And this sits at the back of your head. And so you turn it on with this and it does the standard connected. I feel like that voice is very common with any third-party Bluetooth headphones. And from there, it connects to your phone and it plays music or in my case, an audiobook very well. And yes, as a side sleeper, I was concerned, okay, I'm going to be laying on a speaker. Is that going to hurt me? No, it's very soft. I've had no problems with it. And then that means also that I'm listening out of both ears instead of just one. And it's delightful. It's quiet enough that, because that was the other thing, is that I tried a bunch of different options, ones that maybe stuck in my ear better. But the problem was the Bluetooth profile or whatever it was, it would not let me make the music the audiobook quiet enough, which is what I need. I needed to just be at a very low volume. So it was kind of like I'd get down, it'd still be too loud. I'd hit the thing again and then it would go completely off. It would mute. So this has plenty of space to turn up or down the volume as you need to, and it's great. It works for me as a side sleeper. Occasionally, I'll sleep on my back, and in that position, it's also nice. And the fabric's very breathable too, so it doesn't make me too hot. Because I was worried if my ears were covered that I was going to get too warm. But the fabric is super breathable, so that hasn't been an issue. And yeah, it's solved my problem, and I don't have to wake up with the anxiety of breathing in an AirPod. Which is quite nice. So,
oh my God, Mikah! I saw when you're rolling over all the different options. There's a purple one. Because you should buy one because you would so totally look like Prince, like when he was wearing that headband.
That's true. Maybe I should. When I was younger, one of our family friends always used to say, "You have to go as Prince for Halloween one year. You have to go as Prince," because she very much liked.
You were like,
Prince
has to go as Mikah. Prince has to go as Mikah.
You don't look like Prince, but you've got all the architectural foundations that if you made up like Prince, people would be like, "Oh my God, that guy looks exactly like Prince."
There's all
blouses.
There's also a wireless charging option for folks who are bougie and want the wireless charging option. The one that I have was expensive enough at $99.95. There's a wired version where you just plug it into your phone or what have you. I guess if you got an iPod Shuffle still, you could clip it on the side of the headband, which is much less expensive. So yeah, their most expensive model is completely wireless, and you just pop it onto this little charging puck whenever you need to. I've found that it lasts several days before I have to recharge it. And then afterwards, it's just a USB, micro on the side to plug it in and get it charged up. So, all right. That brings us to the end of this episode of MacBreak Weekly. Of course, you can tune in to watch the show live, which records every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, or around about that time at twit.tv/live. I think the best way to get the show, though, is by going to twit.tv/mbw, because when you do, you get the show via audio or video in whatever podcast or audio listening application you want. You just click subscribe to audio, subscribe to video. You choose Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, whatever you want to do, you can get it there. And make sure that you get the show as soon as it's available. It's kind of the best way to do it. I should also mention Club Twit. Twit.tv/clubtwit is where you go to check that out. Club Twit is the very awesome club where for $7 a month, you can get every single one of Twit's shows ad-free. It's a feed that has all that awesome content ad-free. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Outtakes, behind the scenes today. There'll be a little clip about bragging about hats and mugs and other flexing we did before the show kicked off. And access to the members-only Discord, which is where you can hang out with your fellow Club Twit members while the show's going on and even when the show's not going on. And also, those of us here at Twit are often there. $7 a month for all of that at twit.tv/clubtwit. Awesome place to go to check that out. And I do want to briefly mention one other thing, which is that our survey is now available, our audience survey. It is the way that we get to know who all of you are out there. Who are you? What are you talking about? We want to know what you're into, what you like, and that survey helps us make sure that we understand our audience. It's at twit.tv/survey22. It'll only take you a few minutes. We were testing it before. I think I took it 8 times, and it only took me a few minutes to do it 8 times, so it should take you even less time to do it. twit.tv/survey22. All right, it is time to thank our awesome guests. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. What do you have coming up?
Oh, it's great. We had a big discussion about digital events on Monday. Today we were talking about Stream Voodoo, which is another kind of point-to-point connection. Tomorrow we're talking about photogrammetry, so how to turn photos into models, and then Thursday we talk about our new launch of all the big video system that we're building, and then on Friday we have Microsoft on talking about Teams and broadcast and stuff like that. So it's a busy week, busy week at Office Hours. It always is.
Wow.
And of course we do education on Saturdays, which we don't broadcast to YouTube, so you have to be there in Zoom to see it. But it's an unbelievable conversation among educators of just talking about the issues that they're dealing with, and some of it is philosophical, some of it is technical. It's just an incredible 2 hours, and so that's on Saturdays. 8 o'clock in the morning.
Brilliant. Andy Anatko, of course, folks can listen to you on WGBH. But yeah, anything you want to plug?
Yep, I'm on 12:30 in the afternoon on Friday this week. Go to WGBHnews.org to stream it live, or stream it probably about 8 hours later, because they usually break out my segment, my weekly high-tech hidey-ho, as a separate thing. But yeah, WGBHnews.org.
Excellent. And Renee Ritchie at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. What do you have to plug today?
Oh, I mean, go take a look at Eric's interview. He was really great. Talked all about Apple and privacy. And hopefully by either later tonight or tomorrow, I'll have my really long how Apple can annihilate SMS video up.
All right. I am at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee at chihuahua.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Of course, here, iOS Today, or recorded earlier today, as well as Tech News Weekly, which records on Thursdays. And soon, after everything gets back to somewhat normalcy, I'll rejoin Leo Laporte on Saturdays for the Tech Guy. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of MacBreak Weekly. I believe this is the time where I say, get back to work, because break time is over. Bye, everybody.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly, and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.